talking about Filipino Americans this afternoon on Kababayan LA. These are your kids, these are your grandkids, and these are your cousins. These are your, they seldom talk to you about these things. But I want to bring it out in the open because I want to understand the Filipino American community, our Kababayan, second, third, fourth generation Filipino Americans. And earlier, I like what you said about how even though you're Americanized, you consider yourself Filipino, and that's because you know values, because of upbringing, because of the way you look. But okay, when you consider yourself Filipino, what do you think makes you Filipino? For somebody like you, Lynn, who doesn't speak Tagalog, doesn't understand Tagalog, I know that doesn't define being a Filipino. But what do you think defines being a Filipino?
Well, what I think defines being Filipino, like, yes, there are the food, the culture, the dances, but the moments where I feel like I'm Filipino, it's when I'm with my family. And then once I gone to college with UCR Katipunan, that just camaraderie, that just feeling of just a team, like the feeling of just friendship and family.
And belonging.
Belonging.
Which is what you said earlier,
definitely.
Chloe, Jumar.
Well, what I would say that defines me as Filipino is, I very much like what Liz says, is my family. Even though I came here in America when I was 5, and I grew up here, my family, especially my parents, they never let me forget about my Filipino heritage, even let alone they never let me forget how to speak Tagalog, And that's something I'm actually really thankful for, that my parents never let me forget that, because I think knowing the Tagalog language for me personally and still being able to speak and understand it is what truly defines me as a Filipino.
Okay. Chloe?
Same with Jumar and Liz. I mean, like, just the whole feeling of, like, having a group of friends that are Filipino. I even have friends that are non-Filipino, and they act more Filipino, too.
Isn't there instant chemistry?
Yeah.
Like when you're Filipino, I'm Filipino too. But then the first topic for connection is food.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But does it go beyond that? When you say that some of your non-Filipino friends are more Filipino, what do you mean? How do they act?
They know more of the food. They're like, oh yeah, like, I know this person who's Filipino, and they brought me into the food and everything. And so it just, that you get that instant connection. You want to share everything with them. And then, they do a lot of events within the organization. They join the board and everything. And so it's just that kind of feeling, like, okay, they're Filipinos at heart.
And these are people who are trying to affect change, but then at the same time actively pursuing being active within the Filipino community. And these are you, obviously, because you sit on the board of SCPASA, which is a Filipino organization. But is it the same for your Filipino friends?
Yes.
Does every Filipino you know actively seek to connect to his heritage or her heritage?
Yes, I see it a lot, where every time I meet a Filipino, they feel like they want to get connected with their own culture, and I feel like the way to go about that is mainly, majority of the time, is connecting through a Filipino organization.
Jumar, everyone like that?
In my opinion, I would actually have to disagree with Chloe. I guess in regards to the people I've met while in college over at Riverside, I would say yes, they do want to connect with the culture, but in regard to most of the people I grew up with back in my hometown, which is in Oxnard, even though Oxnard is highly dense with Filipinos, the resources to learn about our Filipino culture, heritage, was very scarce. So I think that kind of lacked self-interest for some of the Filipinos there to understand their culture.
Liz?
I do also kind of agree with Jumar. When being in UCR, I do see, like, in our group of people, interest in the culture, but outside that, I just think that they just haven't found that, like, that alternative or that outlet for them to realize more about Filipino culture, more than just food and...
So is it an outlet, or is it something that triggers inside you to want to connect? Or when you say that it's because it's not readily available, connecting to your heritage and, like, information, and that's why people are not aware? Would you say that they're just not aware, or would you say that there's no interest? Because it's two different things, right?
Yeah.
I think mainly no interest. There's more. You are aware that it's out there, but I think it's more of their interest in
Yes,
it.
and they don't see the
Yes.
need to connect.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because I think with something as to like kind of figuring out your own identity has to come from within. You know, it has to spark within yourself to go out and look for it. You know,
I
it
like
just can't be someone telling you find who
Find
you
it,
are. You know,
right.
you got to find it within yourself first.
But I know looking for it is one thing. It can also be very frustrating, especially when you say that it's not readily available. And sometimes our families are not very helpful. This isn't the type of thing that you talk to your parents about, right? You don't go to your tito or tita or lolo or lola and ask because, you know, they look at you differently as well.
I get laughed at.
Okay, we'll talk about that. Frustrations and aspirations, and we return on the show to Go Away.